What do these have in common? Anybody know? All right, so does anybody know what these are? AirTags, right? Okay. What about this? That's an app. Anybody recognize what this app is? That's the Find My app on the iPhone. All right, so if you have an iPhone and you go Find My, if you have an iPhone and you didn't know about this, it's going to change your life, okay? Does anybody know what these are? They're a little bit harder to tell. Yeah, that's a tile. So I have one of those. I don't have my wallet. I have one of those in my wallet and on my keys. And then this, I've only ever had a Google phone once, but this is, I guess, Google Find Me. It's like Google's version of Apple. So what do all these have in common? Anybody know? What? I heard something. Okay, these are how your life gets so much easier, okay? So what these do is they help you find things, all right? So if you have an iPhone and you have an Apple Watch, which I have, if I can't find my phone here, I'll just show you guys right now. Oh, there's my phone. It's over there somewhere. Okay, now if I don't have my watch, but I have my phone, I can use my phone to find my watch. I can find my computer. I can find Megan's phone, her watch. Now, whenever Apple came out with this stuff, it was so awesome. We're like, wait a minute, what about the stuff I don't have Apple things for? Now, AirTags, I don't actually know if AirTags make noise, but they help you track things. But Tile, which is this right here, you put those on your keys, you put it in your wallet, and then you have an app. If you can't find your keys, you can't find your wallet, you look at the Tile app. It tells you, did you leave your wallet in Target? Somebody one time left their wallet in Target. I won't say who it was. Luckily, we found out. We called Target. They found it before someone else did. All right? So, but for me, normally, it's like I can't find my wallet. It's somewhere in the house, and then I find it with because when you're close enough, it'll make a noise, and then you can page it. So these are the kinds of devices that help you find things. Now, I have AirPods. AirPods are so fancy, Apple has just built this into them. You don't need to buy any of this stuff. You just have the AirPods, and if you can't find them, you hit Find Me, and your AirPods make noise. So your AirPods also will track, so whenever you leave them behind, your phone will be like, hey, you left your AirPods at the gym. And so you go back and get it. All right, so this is what I'm getting to. I cannot imagine a world without this stuff now. Okay? Now, a couple of days ago, my AirPods were doing something weird, and they're actually still doing it, where they would not connect to my phone, and my phone would think that they were somebody else's AirPods, so it wouldn't track them. And so the other day this happened, and I told Megan, I'm like, I can't find my AirPods. I'm like, I think they're here. My phone tells me they're at the gym. I'm like, I think there's a problem where the connection is not right. The only way to fix it is I have to find them. But I have to find them without Find Me. I have to do the old-fashioned look. And so I didn't tell Megan I was going to do this, but it's mostly me. So eventually I found him. This is the text message I sent her. Okay? So if you guys didn't know, millennials, we text each other in our own house. Okay? Not when we're in the same room, but I said, found my AirPods, fixed the issue, so weird. Mostly annoying because I rely so much on Find Me, or it's supposed to be Find Me. Find them with the noise. This is me texting quick. And then I had this. This is the line I want everyone to see. I had to look everywhere in the old-fashioned way. Ha ha. Which is the way we had to look for stuff before we had Find Me. I cannot imagine finding my phone without being able to page it. I can't imagine looking for my wallet without being able to page it. Right now, the tiles on my keys are dead, and every time I have to find them, I'm like, why don't I change those batteries? Because I still, my office keys are on a different keychain. They're somewhere in my house, I can't find them because the tile's dead. So this is life in the 21st century. And without this Find Me, we're in darkness. And the other night, I felt like I was in darkness because I could not find my AirPods. Now, I know this is trivial, it's stuff. But whenever you need your keys, when you need your wallet and you can't find it, and you have this tool, but it doesn't work, it's like looking in the darkness. It's like being in darkness, feeling around, not able to find what you're looking for. And that's how I felt the other day, having to find my AirPods the old-fashioned way. Knowing I'm pretty sure I brought them home, I don't know where I took them out of my pocket in this house. Maybe in my car, maybe in the living room, maybe a 4-year-old or a 3-year-old toddler found them and ran off with them. Maybe they're somewhere in this house. I don't know where they are. I felt like I was in darkness. So this is how we can feel about looking for things. But life can also feel like darkness, right? Like we're looking for an answer, we're looking for a solution, and we don't know where to look, or we can't find that solution. Or no matter where we look or what we do, it feels like this darkness is around us, and we're looking around, unable to find our way out. And this is exactly the kind of situation that our readings today talk about. People in darkness, people who are looking for a solution, and they find themselves in this place of darkness. And so we're going to look at a couple of these stories today. So the first one we're going to look at is Simon Peter's. We're not going to read all that again. The reason I read it today, which I normally don't, is because we're going to skip around Simon's story a little bit. Now, before we read and acquaint ourselves with Simon's story, just a reminder for those of you who maybe haven't been here or who haven't been tracking, John 21 is the end of John's gospel. In the chapter right before it, John 20, we looked at that last week, Jesus appears to his disciples for the first time in the upper room. Now, Simon is there. Now, if you go back a couple more chapters, and you might know this story just because it's one of the more well-known crucifixion stories, Jesus tells Simon, "You are going to deny me 3 times." And then Simon says, "That'll never happen. I will go with you to the grave." And then Jesus gets arrested that night. Simon goes to the high priest's house. He's in the courtyard. People identify him. They're like, "Hey, you were with Jesus, weren't you?" 3 times Simon denies Jesus. Then Jesus gets crucified. Simon sees he sees the tomb empty, but he has never dealt with this denial that he denied Jesus. And then now we have this story. And so this is the beginning. Again, Simon Peter, Thomas, Nathaniel, the sons of Zebedee, and 2 other disciples, they're all just hanging out in Galilee, where they live. And then this is what Simon says. He says, "I'm going out to fish," Simon Peter told them. And they said, "We'll go with you." So they went out and they got into the boat, but they caught nothing. Now, when we meet Simon, he's a fisherman. That's what he does. But then Jesus calls Simon to follow him. And so Simon leaves behind his fisherman trade. But now it's the end of the gospel. The thing that Jesus just told them in chapter 20 is he breathed on them the Holy Spirit, and he says, "Now I'm sending you to do my work." So the question is, well, then why is Simon fishing? It's because he has an identity crisis. I think that Simon isn't sure if he's supposed to be doing Jesus' work. I think Simon doesn't trust himself. I think he's a little bit uncertain if Jesus trusts him. I think he's like, maybe I just need to become a fisherman again. Simon is in darkness. He's in this dark place, and yes, it's darkness that he brought upon himself because of his decisions, but it's all the same darkness. Now, we have another man we met, Saul. Now, Saul is somebody who we might have known as Paul from his epistles, his letters in the book of Acts. But we also know here in the early Acts that Paul's name is Saul. Saul is his Hebrew name. Paul is like a Roman name. So when he becomes an apostle to the Gentiles, he starts going by Paul. So before he was that guy, he was the person persecuting Christians. And he was there when a man named Joseph got basically murdered in the city by stoning. And then they laid their coats at Saul's feet because Saul basically had blessed this. And so now Saul is going to Damascus. The reason he's going to Damascus is because he has been given permission by the high priest to arrest Christians there. So Saul is going to Damascus, and this is what happens. As they neared Damascus on this journey, suddenly a light from heaven flashed around him. He fell to the ground and heard a voice saying to him, "Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me?" So Saul has this encounter with God. That's what the light is. That's what the voice is. If you read Old Testament passages, this happens a number of times. This is Saul having an encounter with God. And God says, "Why do you persecute me?" And so this is Saul's response. "Who are you, Lord?" Saul asked. Now, of course, the reason Saul is asking this is because he thought that he knew God. He thought he was serving God by arresting Christians. And for him to hear, "You're persecuting me," means that Saul's got something wrong. And he wants to know what he's got wrong. And this is what the response is. "I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting," he replied. "Now get up and go into the city, and you will be told what you must do." The men traveling with Saul stood there speechless. They heard the sound, but they did not see anyone. Saul got up from the ground, but when he opened his eyes, he could see nothing. So they led him by the hand into Damascus. For 3 days he was blind and did not eat or drink anything. So Saul is persecuting Christians. He is persecuting God. And he finds himself in real darkness because he's blind. And in spiritual darkness, I imagine, because he thought he knew who God was. He thought he was doing the right thing. Turns out he was not doing the right thing. And so now he has this identity crisis. Not only can he not see anymore, but what he thought he knew, he was wrong about. He's in darkness. So in life, we might find ourselves in darkness, like Saul and Peter. And maybe for us, this darkness could be self-made. It could be something that we have done. It could have been decisions we've made. It could have been people that we were with. It could have been people that we hurt. It could be decisions that we regret. Things that eat at us deep down when we actually think about them. We're in this darkness. That's where Peter and where Saul find themselves. Have you experienced this kind of darkness before? And there's another kind of darkness, right? A kind that you didn't actually cause. A kind that comes onto you without any control. Now, the psalmist from today knows about this. Look at this psalm. I will exalt you, Lord, for you lifted me out of the depths, and you did not let my enemies gloat over me. Lord my God, I called to you for your help, and you healed me. You, Lord, brought me up from the realm of the dead. You spared me from going down to the pit. Now, we don't exactly know the circumstances of this psalm, but it's either some sort of sickness or some sort of metaphor for something that happened to this person. Now, if it is David who wrote it, which is very possible, think about, if you know David's story, he was on the run for all those years from Saul, different Saul in the Old Testament, the king who was trying to kill him. David was in this deep place of despair. He did nothing except for get anointed king. He tried to help Saul. He never tried to overthrow the throne. But Saul hated him and tried to have him killed. And so David's in this dark place. We might be in a place of darkness, not because of anything we did, but because of life. Because life is full of darkness that we can't control. Whether it's a sickness or it's poor health, it's a loss of a loved one, it's some sort of challenge that you might face in your employment, in your work. Maybe it's just the state of the world and the worry you feel about life when you look at the world around us and we're like, I have no real control on what's going to happen if the world continues in darkness. This is what happens. But the question then is, where do we find hope in all these stories? So we looked first to Peter and Saul. We get a little bit of an answer. So look, this is what happened to Peter. So after they met Jesus and they had eaten, Jesus comes, and when they had finished, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? Yes, Lord, he said, you know that I love you. Okay, so he asked him that once. And then Jesus says again, Jesus said, feed my sheep. Then he says again, Simon, son of John, do you love me? And then again, Peter says, yes, Lord, you know that I loved you. And then Jesus asks him, or says again, feed my sheep. And then finally a third time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Now, Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him a third time. And then this is what Simon says, Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you. And so Jesus says again, feed my sheep. And then he says, very truly, I tell you that when you were younger, you were dressed, and we read all that earlier. But he says, look, you will stretch out your hands, and someone else will dress you and lead you where you do not want to go. So what is this story about? Why does Jesus ask Simon 3 times if he loves him? Remember what I said. Simon has this identity crisis. What did he do? He denied Jesus 3 times. And so what does Jesus ask Simon 3 times? Do you love me? And Simon says yes. And Jesus knows that. Simon says, Jesus, you know that I love you. So what does Jesus tell Simon to do? He says, feed my sheep, or care for my people. What I have appointed you to do, I want you to do it. And then he tells him this cryptic message about how he's going to die. But basically he's telling Simon, you will one day be arrested and you will go to the cross. I mean, the traditional belief is that Simon was crucified like Jesus, but upside down, or on a different kind of cross. I can't remember which one. But basically, he faces a very similar, like one of the apostles wants to be crucified on a cross that's like an X, because he doesn't want to be like Jesus. But then there's one that gets crucified upside down because they realized if you hung him upside down, it was even worse. So I'm not sure which one it was. It's all tradition. But Simon goes to death for Jesus. Now, what this is saying to Simon is, you are welcome back into my people. You are okay. I forgive you. I want you to continue the work. So what Jesus does is he enters into Simon's darkness, and he brings him out. Now look what happens with Saul. We'll jump down to verse 9 in Acts. The Lord told him, go to the house of Judas on Straight Street and ask for a man from Tarsus named Saul. So this is God talking to Ananias. For he is praying. In a vision, he has seen a man named Ananias come and place his hands on him to restore his sight. And so Ananias is being told to go see Saul. Now we're going to skip some verses. That's what this line means. We're skipping some stuff. Now we're down in 15. This man is my chosen instrument. So this is God continuing to talk to Ananias. To proclaim my name to the Gentiles and their kings, and to the people of Israel. I will show him how much he must suffer for my name. Then Ananias went to the house and entered it. Placing his hands on Saul, he said, Brother Saul, the Lord Jesus, who appeared to you on the road as you were coming here, has sent me so that you may see again and be filled with the Holy Spirit. Saul, the man who had Christians killed, is called to serve God. Jesus did not abandon Saul in his darkness. Instead, he sends Ananias to heal him, and he calls Saul to be a part of his mission. Jesus wants to enter into our darkness and help us find light. The same with the psalmist. Look at the end of the psalm, how it goes. Hear, Lord, and be merciful to me. Lord, be my help. You turned my wailing into dancing. You removed my sackcloth and clothed me with joy, that my heart may sing your praises and not be silent. Lord my God, I will praise you forever. So the context of this psalm is a call to praise because of God's faithfulness in times of darkness. Even though the psalmist faced darkness, God was there. God is with us in our darkness. Whether it's a self-imposed darkness, something that you brought on yourself, which we've all done from time to time, or it's a darkness that you have no control over. God is there because Jesus is there. This is what we must see. No darkness is too dark for God's light. In our life, we need to see this. No darkness is too dark for God's light. It doesn't matter who you are, what you've done. Jesus has come to set us free from our darkness. And that's what the story of Easter is all about. So on this third Sunday of Easter, this is the message. Look what Jesus says. Jesus said to him, this is in Luke 19:10, today salvation has come to this house because this man too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and save the lost. He came for sinners. This one right here, Mark 2:17, on hearing this, Jesus said to them, it is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. I have come not to call the righteous, but sinners. Jesus came for people in darkness. He came for people like you and me, who are sinners who need to be set free. No darkness is too dark for God's light. And then Jesus said this about people who face other situations out of their control. Luke 4:18-19. The Spirit of the Lord is on me because he has anointed me to proclaim goodness to the poor. Or good news to the poor. He sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. For all those people in Israel who were oppressed and who had this heavy taxation, who were slaves because they couldn't pay their taxes, who had no rights because they weren't citizens of Rome. Those are the people that Jesus came to set free. No darkness is too dark for God's light. This is the Easter story. Jesus comes and he lets darkness, he lets evil, sin, and death, the power of Satan, defeat him by crucifying him so that he can be resurrected from the dead to defeat death forever. And by defeating death, he brings victory over darkness. And so what this means is we can find freedom in Jesus. Now, there's this one caveat that has to be mentioned. Though Jesus beat darkness, he hasn't come to do away with it completely yet. And so what that means is we still face darkness in life. And eventually that means we face the kind of darkness that leads to death. In my life, we've experienced that. Many of you know we've lost 3 children in the second trimester of childbirth. And we had to deal with why wouldn't God let them be born whole? And my only answer is God wants it, and his solution is Jesus. But just like a broken yolk or a broken egg and the yolk's pouring out and the white, and you're trying to patch that egg, you can never patch that egg. What needs is the shell to be made whole again, to be renewed. And so God has come not to patch our problems, but to renew the world. And the way he renews the world is when Jesus returns. But in the meantime, the good news is he does not leave us in that darkness. We can be set free from it in our spiritual darkness, and though we face challenges in life and eventually death, we know that death has no hold because of Jesus. No darkness is too dark for the light of God. So on this third Sunday of Easter, may we know that there's hope in darkness, whether it's self-imposed or it's due to life. May we know that Jesus wants to join us in our darkness, and that's the truth. He was with Megan and I in that darkness, and yeah, he did not bring our children back. And yes, we have beautiful Miriam now and little Seamus, 2 babies that were given to us after we lost our other children. But before we ever got them, we knew that God was good. And one day we would meet the children we lost. One day, God would make them whole. And so we face darkness, but we know the time is coming when Jesus will restore all. Because no darkness is too dark for God's light. So if you are in self-imposed darkness, there is hope. You can find light right now. That is for sure. If you're in dark places in your mind, in your life, there is hope in Jesus. You can find a place of hope. If you are ill, there is hope. Even in an illness that cannot be cured, there's moments of hope, knowing one day your body will be restored. And I haven't shared this before, but my dad, he's been having issues for a while now with like balance and all that stuff. He's 60 now, I think, just turned 60. And he realized that what they finally figured out was he has this rare brain, I don't even, all systems, I can't remember what it's called. It's so rare, like it's just not very common. But basically it's disease where basically his brain will deteriorate, not like with your memory, but basically he'll lose more and more of his ability to walk and talk, and eventually, just there's nothing they can do. In that darkness, how do we find hope? I mean, we're early in this journey, but all I can say, I know one day Jesus will restore all things. It doesn't make it any easier when we have loved ones who we see on this journey. But the silver lining is the hope of Easter. No darkness is too dark for God's light. But if you're in that darkness of self-imposed, you can find light. If you're in a life-imposed darkness, there's still hope that Jesus will be with you. No matter what we encounter, may we turn to Jesus, for no darkness is too dark for God's light.